This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association. Your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Mark Magnuson.
Hello and welcome into Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Mark Magnuson. Today is Wednesday, October 18th, 2023. So glad you could join us for today's show. In today's episode, I will be joined by Brett Leahr. He is an agronomist with Agrigold, and Brett's going to teach us about red crown rot, which is a disease that is new to the Midwest, a fungal disease that attacks soybeans, has been found for many years in the southern portion of the United States. We will also have a check of the ag weather outlook, but first, let's take a look at the markets.
It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net.
At the end of another trading day, we are joined now by Tyler Schau of agmarket.net. And Tyler, as we start things off, can't help but ask, what's going on with the soybean meal right now?
That is a very good question. The soybean meal has been on a tear here for the last couple weeks, and we're going to close out today pushing about $415 a ton on December soybean meal. Late August, we pushed up to these levels, and that's when we started kind of a month-long sell-off. There's been a lot of spreading between meal and oil recently. Oil's kind of really struggled. But today there was some fireworks set off on soybean meal. It might be a function of dryness in Argentina. Argentina does export a lot of soybean meal. Last year, their exports dropped significantly with their extreme reduction in soybeans just from the drought that they had. They're currently still in a drought. It does look like there's some prospects for that to pick up, but either way, it looks like the market's heating up. Some buyers trying to find it, and it wouldn't be surprising to see some export sales of meal show up on the books here in the next few days.
So Tyler, with meal taking off, are any of the other grains following with market action to the upside there?
Soybeans have been toying with $13 really for the last, since the WASDE report a week ago on Thursday. Finally, yesterday, we got a settlement above 13. Well, excuse me, we went above 13. We couldn't hold it. We ended up settling at 12.97. In the overnight, we had a big push higher, traded up to about 13.09, came in this morning, sold back below 13. And on this last push here in the last really 2 hours with soybean meal pushing higher, soybeans are actually going to settle somewhere up. The last trade was at 13.12 and a half. Likely going to settle in that 13.10 range. So finally got a settlement above $13. There's a lot of bulls that have been looking for a close above $13 on soybeans. Finally got it. It'll be interesting to see how this shakes out.
Tyler, so often when we're talking about the markets, we say, well, there's a headline that's causing this reaction, or there's a lack of news that is leading to not a lot happening. But right now we have a lot happening in the world. But at the same time, can it go the other way where there's almost too many things happening and it kind of causes everyone to step back and say, hey, we got to wait and see how this plays out?
That's it. I wouldn't say that you've got people saying we got to see how this plays out. I think you're seeing that a lot, which where there's just so many different catalysts out there. You've got the conflict in Russia, Ukraine still going on. You've got the war now in Israel. You've got China and Russia signing an agreement today on grain exports. You've got this macroeconomic headwind here in the U.S. and really worldwide going on. You've got interest rates that now are expected to go even higher. So a lot of markets that would typically be correlated, that people would say, okay, this is when this market's up, this one's down, or vice versa, have really become divorced. And there's just a lot of stuff that, quite frankly, doesn't make a lot of sense. For a long time, whenever we saw the financial markets, the Dow, the S&P down, we would say that would pressure livestock. The last few weeks, those haven't been trading in tandem. So there's just a lot of cards up in the air and people trying to figure out how they're going to land. And sometimes that's difficult in this game.
So, Tyler, we're, of course, right now at this point of the season keeping a close eye on the grains, but what is taking place with the livestock in the ag marketplace today?
I was a little surprised. The cash market and the fat cattle seems to be heating up again. Hearing some stories of some upper 180 cash paid by some major packers around the country, but that futures is just struggling catching any type of a bid here and pushing higher. And then the feeder calf index is kind of taking it on the chin here over the last couple weeks, and really the last few days in particular. And just a reminder, the feeder cattle futures settle against that index. So, like your October feeder calf contract and that index will theoretically be right about even on expiration here next Friday or next Thursday, excuse me. And you've got October fat or feeders at 247.12, and you've got the feeder calf index that's down $1.40. That was yesterday's print at 246.83. So that's come under some pressure. Was as high as about 253 in late September, and that cash market, that's a reflection of the cash market of a 700 to 900 pound steer being sold in auction barns and internet sales. And it just appears like the prices on those weights are coming down. Although, one can say that the 5 and 6 weight calves that are lighter and being weaned, they're bringing a pretty penny. So there's a little bit of funkiness going on in the feeder calf market right now. But I would assume once this fall calf run gets finished up, we move back into December, January, February, we'll see some things straighten out.
And Tyler, on the hog side of the market, what are we seeing there?
Hogs had a big sell-off here over the last couple weeks. It actually went and set a low on your nearby or on your December hogs, basically a double bottom from your May lows that we saw earlier in the spring/summer. Rallied off of that low a little bit here today, but it very oversold. The one thing I would say might provide a little bit of support to that hog futures market. There again, the cash and the futures have got to settle against each other. Cash is, I believe it's up above the futures by like $7 or $8 right now. So, there is some buoyancy there. Possibly that cash, if it doesn't trickle down to that $68 mark where December hogs are at right now, it should, in theory, pull that futures contract higher.
And then, Tyler, as you are one of the people that we talk to frequently, but you're kind of on the northern end of our perspective up in North Dakota, and you would like to update us on harvest and how that's going. How is harvest continuing in North Dakota?
I would say beans are getting close to being wrapped up. For the most part, the bean yields were very, very good. In western North Dakota, especially, a common bean yield out here, an average is, guys are going to shoot for that 25 to 30 bushel average across their farm. Hearing a lot of 50 plus, in some cases 60 bushel beans, and then having a few guys start going here in central and western North Dakota. Again, an average corn crop's in that 110 to 125, and early reports of 150, 160, 170. You get over into eastern North Dakota, I've got a guy that has a 200 bushel average on his farm, or that's what we budget for. And right now it looks like he's going to be closer to 240 bushel average on his farm. So really good yields. We kind of saw that coming. We've been really blessed. Really good weather, good moisture, temperature never really got that hot. So it was a good summer to live in North Dakota.
Great summer for North Dakota, and already I'm sure Tyler's getting ready for the winter in North Dakota.
We might be paying for that here over the next 6 months.
Well, Tyler, thank you so much for all the information. As always, what is the best way for our viewers to get in touch and to hopefully personalize their marketing plan?
Check us out on the internet, agmarket.net, and if they do want to call direct, the number 701-987-6009.
Tyler Schau, agmarket.net, our guest today. Tyler, thank you as always. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks, Mark.
That was Tyler Schau of agmarket.net with our closing market analysis. Let's turn our attention now to the closing numbers, and those numbers courtesy of the folks at Bar Chart. December corn up 3 even at $4.92 even. November soybeans up 14 1/4 at $13.11 even. January soybean meal up $11.60 at $406.30. January soybean oil down 55 cents at $54.08. Chicago wheat up 9 1/4 at $6.08 even. Minneapolis wheat up 5 3/4 at 733.5. Kansas City hard red wheat up 3 3/4 at 670.5. March oats down 4 even at 390.25. On the Merc, December live cattle up 32 cents at 187.20. November feeder cattle down 72 cents at 249.72. December lean hogs up 47 cents at 68.02. Class 3 milk up 60 cents at 18.43. And that is our closing market summary here on Ag Matters PM. It's time now to take a quick break to hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association, and the Soy Checkoff. And when we come back, I am joined by Agrigold Agronomist Brett Leahr, as Brett's going to tell us all about red crown rot.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
You're watching Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. In today's show, I'm joined by Brett Leahr, Agrigold Agronomist. He's going to teach us all about red crown rot, a disease that is becoming a little bit more well known to us here in the Midwest, unfortunately. Joined today by Brett Leahr of Agrigold. He is an Agrigold agronomist, and Brett here today to tell us about red crown rot, which is a disease, a fungal disease that attacks soybeans. Brett, what is red crown rot and why should we be concerned about it?
Yeah, so red crown rot is actually kind of a new soybean disease to us in the central corn belt, but it's actually been a thing in the deep south for a few years now. And I think the biggest thing about red crown rot is its effect on our soybean crop. It can be very devastating, very fast. So we have to kind of get a good understanding of what it is and what it's not. So there has been a lot of studies in the past couple of years about red crown rot, and I think we're starting to learn more and more about it, but there seems like there's no real good treatment for it just yet. But I think as time goes on, we'll learn more about it and get some better understandings of management and what to actually do with red crown rot.
So, Brett, this is a disease then that is more prevalent in the South historically, and we're now seeing it in areas, like you said, in the Corn Belt. So where has it been found already? Where did it first get found in this part of the world?
Yeah, so it originated in Pike County in 2018, and there's been speculations on how it kind of got here. I think I've heard a lot of Pike counties being a really big deer hunting capital of kind of the Midwest, and I've heard that it could come in on maybe plot seed for like deer food plots, and that's how it got established in our kind of local environment. But personally, I've seen it in 4 different counties this year. I've seen it in Adams County, which is just kind of northwest of Pike County. And I've also seen it just south of Springfield and south of Decatur. And that seems kind of where that rain has followed this year early. So I think it's kind of influenced by rainfall. And also I had a soybean plot that I watered just with the lack of rain, just to see nutrient uptake differences in Macoupin County. And I actually saw red crown rot fire up from flag to flag on where I watered that soybean plot, and there was no other red crown rot in that soybean variety. So that tells me it's very water driven and it loves a tight clay, wet environment, and that's kind of where it thrives in.
So did you have a feeling then that it was tied into that moisture level and kind of liking when there is more moisture in that early rainfall, or was that just something that you kind of had a whim about?
So that's kind of where I kind of made the observation of that. And this year, it really didn't spread like years past, especially in Pike County. I work really close to a grower who just farms right across the road from where it was first found. And I've been kind of watching his fields all year long, and it just didn't spread like it has in the past. And I think that rainfall, depending on where it hit, I think that's really what's driving this disease. And low-lying areas that stay wet, I kind of think that just from seeing the water that I did and just how it did not just develop everywhere this year like it has in the past.
So, Brett, when you are talking about this disease, what should we think about it? Is there another disease that we can point to that's kind of got some similar characteristics? Is it similar at all to like a white mold, for example, or a sudden death syndrome? Is there something we can kind of contextualize about this disease when we think about it?
Yeah, so I think the biggest 2 diseases that come to mind when I think of red crown rot, the first one being SDS. If you look at something when you're driving by on a soybean field and it just kind of looks off-colored out in the middle of the field, I would definitely go out there and look at that field because it will very mimic sudden death syndrome with its interveinal chlorosis. So the biggest difference between red crown rot and SDS is you'll see kind of a turquoise teal look on the root system of a plant that's affected with SDS. And on red crown rot, you'll see some red ball-like pustules on the root system. So that's a huge identifier, but the interveinal chlorosis could be brown stem rot, SDS, red crown rot. So it all kind of looks very similar, but they're pretty different in how they kill. I honestly think red crown rot is a much faster death than STS from what I've seen this year.
So, Brett, you might be scouting your fields and just seeing what's happening above ground. You realize something doesn't look right, but until you're actually getting those roots out of the ground and you might be able to identify those red pustules, that's when you're going to really know it, whether or not you have red crown rot.
Yeah, that's the biggest identifier that we've found right now is those red ball-like pustules. If you do have a case where you do see some red ball-like pustules, I would definitely send those off to an extension or Illinois Soybean Association or something like that, just to make sure it is confirmation of red crown rot, just so you can be proactive for the next following years.
And Brett, is this something then that stays in the field from when you take or after harvest? Is it able to winter in that ground like we see with some other diseases, or is it something that's just in the field for that growing season?
Yeah, it's definitely able to overwinter, and that's the kind of the scary thing about it. The grower that I work closely with about this red crown rot, he always makes notes of the fields that were affected, especially like if this year a field had red crown rot in it, he would manage it and see kind of how bad it was spread, how detrimental the field was, and then make that recommendation for 2 years down the road when it goes back to soybeans to kind of get an understanding of, okay, I saw it in this field this year, so I'm probably going to see it 2 years from now. And that's what he's been doing since I think 2018. It's just kind of keeping record of what fields have had red crown rot to try to help mitigate the risk and try to minimize this disease.
So Brett, you already mentioned it, that this is prevalent in Illinois. We know here in the state of Iowa, our growers are always on top of the newest, the latest when it comes to diseases that they need to be watching and having a protection plan for. So what should growers be doing right now to hopefully prevent red crown rot? And what is the best way? Is it documenting if you find it in your fields and where you find it to, I guess, at least get the process of that data collection going?
Yeah, I think documentation is the number one thing we can do right now. And I know there are different seed treatments that are getting looked at for red crown rot. And I know Saltro is labeled for red crown rot, but I think we need to do a little bit more as an industry in a whole, just to see what kind of factors these seed treatments can play on red crown rot. If they suppress them heavier for different treatments, and kind of look at it from a treatment perspective. And I think that's where we're going to trend towards is treatments, because that's what we've been controlling SDS with is, your Saltro and your Levos. So I think that's where we're going to start trending towards, but I think there's a lot of research that needs to be taken when regarding seed treatments, because it is so new to us here in the Corn Belt, so to say.
Brett Leahr, agronomist with Agrigold. Is there anything else you'd like to let our viewers, our listeners know about when it comes to red crown rot and what they should be preparing for? Because as you said, this is new to us here in the Corn Belt, but it has been around for a while, and we know what it is capable of, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think just documentation and get out there and scout and see, what it is, and if it's SDS versus red crown rot versus red or brown stem rot. So I think just making sure that we have good identification of red crown rot if we do have red crown rot, and just keeping that documentation, talk to your local agronomist, and just try to get ahead of this curve, because I think it's going to be something we're going to challenge with and struggle with.
Brett Leahr, he's an agronomist with Agrigold, our guest here today on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Brett, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really appreciate it. Informative conversation. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you very much for having me.
And thank you once again to Brett Leahr, Agrigold Agronomist, for that interesting discussion. It is time now for a check of the ag weather outlook. Another pleasant fall day here in central Iowa today. Not quite as warm as it was yesterday, when it really felt like a late summer day, to be honest. Today, a little bit on the cooler side, but we are still in that mid-60s range, and it is still quite comfortable. Now, there are some rain shower chances around the state of Iowa today that will continue this evening. And then as we turn our attention to tomorrow, it looks like it will be another pleasant fall day. So let's now turn our attention to the National Weather Service and what's in store for the next 24 hours. As you can see from the National Weather Service, mostly sunny skies with scattered rain chances and breezy. 63 to 70 degrees the expected highs today. Mostly clear with widespread shower chances tonight. 48 to 52 our low range. Mostly cloudy with decreasing clouds throughout the day for Thursday, and highs expected 61 to 67. And now taking a look at our affiliate weather map for tomorrow. Cherokee, partly sunny, high around 63. Shenandoah, sunny, high of 67. Des Moines, partly sunny and 63. Albia, partly sunny and 63. Partly sunny skies in Waterloo with a high of around 62. And chances for rain in Clinton with a high of 61. For a more detailed forecast in your part of the state, make sure and check with your local Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network affiliate. And that's going to bring us to the end of this weather outlook. It also brings us to the end of this episode of Ag Matters PM. You can find all of our content on our website at iowaagnet.com. You can find all of our video content on YouTube for the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. And follow us on social media as well on Facebook, X, LinkedIn, and TikTok. From the IARN studios in Des Moines, I'm Mark Magnuson. For Riley Smith, Dustin Huffman, and Andy Peterson, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.